On this episode of Delivering Marketing Joy, we talk with best-selling author Mike Michalowicz about the rule of 10-25 and why you need to pay yourself first. Hey everybody, and welcome again to another edition of Delivering Marketing Joy. I am your host, Kirby Hasseman, and I am very excited today for our guest, Mike Michalowicz. Mike is the author of The Toilet Paper Entrepreneur, The Pumpkin Plan, and most recently, I believe, Profit First, which I just recently finished listening to myself. So welcome, Mike. I appreciate it.
Oh, Kirby, thanks for having me out here on such a freezing cold day, even though we're both inside and totally warm and cozy.
Absolutely. If you've been outside even a little bit, it's still cold.
Insane, yeah.
Well, hey, I want to jump right into it. As I was telling you before we got started, I just finished Profit First, and I thought it was awesome. It really spoke to me. And I wanted to give, for those who haven't had a chance to read the book or listen to the book yet, shame on them, right? But who don't know, can you give them the basics of the program and how you came up with it?
Yeah, so Profit First is basically, I challenge the belief of how we make money and how we make a profit. And well, I had a personal moment. We were talking off air about it. My own financial calamity. I had sold a couple companies, became a millionaire. I thought I was all that. My ego got the best of me. I mean, really got the best of me. And I subsequently lost all my money. But that was the pain that kind of drove me to find the solution. But there's a fact that has blown my mind away, and it's this. There was a study conducted by the SBA, the Small Business Administration, and they found that there's 28 million small businesses in the U.S. This is defined, by the way, by a company that does $25 million in revenue or less. That's me. I suspect, Kirby, that's your business. That's the vast majority of businesses, of course, are small businesses. But here's a stat that blew my mind. Out of 28 million small businesses in the U.S., 23 million, that's over 80%, 23 million are check by check. And that means that if they don't get a deposit in the next couple of weeks, they don't have enough money to cover payroll or rent or whatever ongoing costs they have. If they don't get any deposits in the next month, they're going to go out of business. And here's what's crazy. That means 23 million people are smart enough, 28 million people are smart enough to build a business, attract customers, deliver the service or product. They can do all these facets of running a business, but there's a piece of our brain missing that can't figure out profit. Mm-hmm. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. That everyone gets everything right except there's one part we can't get right. So what's the flaw? And I kind of put myself on a quest to figure it out. And here's what I believe the problem is. The formula of sales minus expenses equals profit is a prolific formula. We all use this to get to our profit. The flaw is that profit is last. Profit is a leftover in that formula. It's an afterthought. So therefore, most businesses sell to cover expenses. We think about profit last, and that's why when it comes to year end, there usually is nothing. Our accountant may say, "Oh, there's a few dollars, in the income statement. You have a little profit," and then we're like, "Well, where is it?" Well, there's an accounting profit, but there's no actual profit. Right. So I set out to figure out the problem and to solve it, and here it is that sales minus expenses does not equal profit. That's a total abject lie. The truth is we have to take our profit first. So what I propose is a new formula. Sales minus profit equals expenses. And what that means is sell as much as you can, just like you always have, but first take a predetermined percentage, 5, 10, 15, 20% of that money as a profit, reserve it, hide it away, tuck it away from yourself. Now the leftover, the remainder, is expenses. And we'll adjust our business lifestyle to survive, to thrive on those expenses. But since profit's been reserved, profit will accumulate behind the scenes. It's the pay yourself first mentality in business. That's the profit first formula.
Yeah, and it sounds simple, and I think you said it's simple. That doesn't mean it's easy.
Yes, I argue it's very simple, and it's very hard to execute because when I discovered this, and by the way, I don't want to put it out there like I invented this system. This has been around, pay yourself first, forever. 401k, the greatest savings mechanism in U.S. history. It's the pay yourself first mentality. Maybe I'm just the first that's applied this now to the business mindset. When I started doing this for myself, I started doing it 7 years ago. I wrote an article in the Wall Street Journal around this thing, and when I first came up with it, and I broke my own rules within like 6 months. I started reserving money, but then that day came where I didn't have enough money, and I'm like, oh, I'll just borrow from my profit again, or profit, and I took money out of the profit account to pay bills, which defeats this whole mindset. It's not a profit; it's just expenses I tucked away. Yeah. So I had to develop kind of a more sophisticated, a level 2 to that basic foundation of actually sticking with this program. So I have some other principles I subsequently developed, and once I had it nailed for myself, found ways I could actually stick with it and help hold myself accountable, then I started helping other people do the same.
So yeah, and you speak of some of the principles that you talk to in the book, and one of them you call it the 10-25 rule. And that was one of the rules that really spoke to me, that 10-25 rule, because I think I make the mistake that you talk about. Can you explain the 10-25 rule?
Yeah, so those are the days of the month, the 10th and the 25th of the month. What I found in my own business and my friends' businesses and everyone I've ever spoke with is that we generally run our businesses very ad hoc, meaning when there's no money in our bank account, we don't pay bills because we can't. And then when money floods in, maybe a big deposit comes in, we pay all our bills, but we also say, oh, we can make that investment. I need that new computer system or whatever, and the money flows out very quickly. This is attributed to the Parkinson's law. I mean, maybe I should describe this first before I explain the exact execution of the 10-25 rule. But Parkinson's law is this. It's a theorem that came up around human behavior that states that as supply increases, our demand for that supply actually increases. The greatest example I like to use is a toothpaste tube. If you get a brand new tube of toothpaste, hence a big supply, we will put a longer bead of toothpaste on our toothbrush. And when we pour water over it to dampen the toothbrush, if that toothpaste falls in the sink, we're like, see ya, I got more toothpaste in my brand new tube, pal. And we put it on. Conversely, when that tube is nearly empty, our behavior radically changes. The supply is now decreased. We take that toothpaste tube, we bend it over the corner of the sink, trying to squeeze more out of it. My colleague, he's down the hallway there, he cuts the end of the toothpaste tube to squeeze out the other side. Our behavior changes. And if the toothpaste falls in the sink, we'll scoop it back out. Supply dictates our behavior, our demand for it, and the way we behave around it. Well, the theories with money is true too. When money is available, it's a natural tendency of entrepreneurs to do what's called bank balance accounting. We log into our bank account, we see all these deposits in here, and we say, oh, there's a load of money, I can spend it. We squeeze all this toothpaste out. Conversely, when there's very little money in our bank account, we start becoming more innovative. We bend the tube, if you will. We find new ways to squeeze out toothpaste, squeeze out money. So the 10-25 rule, what it does is it allows money to accumulate into one account. I suggest set up an income account just for deposits. Money comes into this account, it accumulates, and that toothpaste tube fills up to a certain degree. Then on the 10th of the month, the first thing we do is we allocate the money that's accumulated in this account for different purposes. We reserve our profit. We put that away. We reserve money to pay our taxes. This time of year, taxes are actually due quarterly, so they're always due. Entrepreneurs often scramble to pay taxes. They should allocate it. So on the 10th of the month, we allocate money out for different purposes. Then the remaining money goes into our operating expense account. So say we accumulate $10,000 for round numbers sake. Well, after allocating 20% to profit, 15% to tax, 30% to pay ourselves, we may only have about 35, 45% left in our operating expenses. So instead of $10,000 in our account, we now see there's actually really $4,500 to run our business. We've intentionally squeezed that toothpaste tube to a smaller size, and now we become more innovative. We have to run our business now for $10,000, about $4,500. Then we allow the money to accumulate again in our income account to the 25th. And what this does is it gets into a rhythm of money coming in, accumulating, dispersing or allocating out. Then we run off of that one account, our operating expenses. There's always less money in there, so it forces innovation. But by doing this rhythm, we don't act reactively. We don't look at the one big number and spend like crazy, or there's one little number, and then we go, oh, there's nothing here, and then we go into panic mode and do collection calls and try to sell anything to anybody. It starts putting us into this cash flow rhythm. And when you're in a rhythm, you're back in control and you're not reactionary. The last thing why I picked the 10th and 25th, why those particular days, is because once you allocate money to these different accounts and your operating expenses, you're going to pay bills out of your operating expense account. Well, if you pay bills on the 10th, when money gets allocated to operating expenses, when you cut those checks, they'll arrive at your vendors by the 15th. When you pay bills on the 25th, they'll arrive usually by the end of the month. That is usually the sequence of when bills are due. So not only are you in a cash flow rhythm and really have control of your business and you're not reactionary, you also are caring for your vendors, which we need to do, and you're paying them when bills are due. That's why I have the 10-25 rule.
No, like I said, that was one of those rules that really resonated with me. It made a lot of sense because I'm sure I was doing some bank account bookkeeping for sure.
Yeah, and by the way, that means you're a human being. That means you're totally normal.
Good.
Yeah. So when inevitably people say, "Oh, I was doing it wrong," and my response is, "You weren't doing it wrong. You were doing it human."
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. If we try to change who we are, if we try to say, you know what, you're doing wrong, do it right, it's very hard because it forces us to change our behaviors. That's the whole fundamental problem with accounting. What traditional sales minus expense equals profit, the problem with that system is money goes into the account, it accumulates there. The next rule is we have sales is to cover expenses. We look at our account, we see what money's in there, we pay expenses. That's what we're following the rule. What I'm simply saying is continue to do your behavior. That's the normal way of doing things. We're just going to put these guardrails around you. We're going to put a simple system around you. So instead of you seeing one account with all this money piled up there and pay when you want, we're just going to put you into a rhythm and we're going to allocate money to these different purposes in advance before you pay bills. And now you can continue to do what you've always done. See how much money's in your account, but no longer it's all the money, it's your operating expenses is less, and spend what you have. That's always been our behavior. Continue to do it. This system now makes that normal human behavior your best ally as opposed to a detriment.
No, that's great. To close, one last question for you. As you mentioned, you'd started a couple different businesses, you'd sold them. Now, I'm sure you got multiple other businesses you're tied to right now. So let's say somebody's starting a business right now. What's one piece of advice, three pieces of advice? What are things that you give as advice for new entrepreneurs?
So, just tying in profit first, you do this right away. So even if you haven't made your first dollar, set up a system where you have multiple accounts predetermined for certain purposes, paying yourself, paying taxes, and so forth. Here's the crazy thing. I do not encourage any entrepreneur to defer paying themselves, yet most of us do. And most of us don't take a profit either. We start a business and we say we got to grow. Profit will come down the road. Paying yourself will come down the road. From my experience, starting many companies, failing actually the majority of times, but never pay yourself later because later will never come. Start paying yourself right away. And what this forces is your company must become healthy. It must find a way, through your guidance, to become successful and profitable right from the get-go. If you're taking your profit first, you have to find a way to get that profit. So you have to sell and you have to run efficiently. So that's step one. Do take your profit and pay yourself first from day one. The second little tip is the riches are in the niches. And so you want to target a special customer with a special need. Most businesses, when we start up, we say, well, I got to sell anything to anybody. I got to become a generalist. Generalists get general customers with general needs, and it's a whole master of none kind of approach, and you never become recognized in your community as being the best. Instead, find a niche. Go for one target market. If it's not working, then start a different spin on a different target market. But find that one customer who you can become world-renowned to, become a specialist for. Because when you have customers, special customers with special needs, they will pay a premium because you're the best at serving that. So pay yourself first and definitely focus on a niche. The final thing, the final tip is don't pivot. And this is such a popular term right now. You got to pivot. You got to keep adjusting. The problem with pivoting is we start ignoring what we need and we keep adjusting to what the customer wants. Pivot means deliver something and then change as the customer's needs change and cater to that perfectly, because that's how you grow. And that's only partially true because it ignores us. I've seen people pivot the hell out of their business and they hate their business because it's not serving their need. So don't pivot, align. Find out what your customers want and you have to adjust to them, but always ensure it still serves your passion, what you enjoy, what you love to do. Because if you have energy around what you love to do and you're doing it as a business, you'll continue to grow. If you resent what you do, that is the first sign of a business that's going to die. That's my 2 tips.
Those are great, Mike. Those are really, really good tips.
Thanks, Kirby.
And I give each person who comes on the show an opportunity to ask me one question. So I don't know if you have had a chance to think about that, but
yeah, I do.
Okay.
Because this is a question I wanted to ask you because so few people answer it honestly or ever get asked this question. I want to know your darkest day as an entrepreneur. What was that like? Oh, man.
Darkest day as an entrepreneur. You know, and I think it's one of the things that you spoke to, you know, maybe a year or so ago, you know, sales kept going up, and up, and consistently. And we got to the, you know, and I was doing some things that I think from the outside looking in looked successful. And
right.
In many ways probably were the right thing. And I got to a point where, you know, some of our clients were taking a little longer to pay. And, you know, certainly these are not unique challenges to me, but we'd gotten to a point at the beginning of the year where sales looked great on paper, but we had very little in the checking account.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, I mean, and candidly, I don't know that it was a dark day. It was a dark quarter.
Yeah.
And so I spent, you know, a lot of sleepless nights trying to figure out the cash flow piece of it, and then trying to think about how I'd change the business in the future so that I was a little bit more profitable. And so it was painful, but I think it's one of the reasons that Profit First spoke so well to me.
No, I love hearing that. You know, and the reason I ask that is so few entrepreneurs believe, especially when they're stepping into business, that other entrepreneurs go through struggles. But I think that's more of the norm. Yeah. So thanks.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mike. I really appreciate you being a part of the show, and look forward to maybe talking to you next time. And I can't wait till your next book.
Oh, thank you very much. It's coming around the corner. Kirby, it's nice to meet you.
All right. Thanks a lot, Mike.
Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks for watching, but wait, can you do me a favor? Please subscribe to my channel. If you haven't done it already, the way to do it's right over here. And hey, if you want to watch the last episode, check that out over here. Again, before you leave, subscribe.